Welcome back. Now, Justin Cohen is one of South Africa's most successful speakers and author of 2 books and 7 audiobooks to add to his credentials. Justin also speaks and trains across the globe in the fields of motivation, sales, service and leadership. And Justin's latest feat is his 3rd book, The Astonishing Power of Story. Now, taking you on an inspirational journey from the birth of humankind to the present, he shows how stories have driven the explosive speed of human progress and how you can use their power to change your life, your organization, and maybe even change the world. Now, Justin joins us in the studio to talk to us about his latest book, and it's a very good morning to you, Justin. Thanks once again for being with us.
Good to be with you, Obria.
It's a pleasure having you. First of all, just take us through who Justin Cohen is, and just how did you get involved in all these, diverse fields from motivation, sales, service, and even leadership. Incredible stuff.
Well, my background is psychology, and really my passion is to inspire people to unleash their potential. And what I discovered is that whether it is sales or leadership or service, a lot of the principles of success remain the same.
The basic principles
Absolutely.
of it. Yeah.
It's about motivation and how do you keep yourself motivated. I always say motivation, motivational speakers, motivation is a bit like a hot bath that goes cold quickly. The key really is self-motivation. Are you able to motivate yourself? But one of the things that I realized, written a number of books in the personal development field, and then realized that having been on the professional speaking circuit for 10 years now, and whether it's New York, London, or Johannesburg, you often arrive at a conference, the CEO pulls out 15 slides with 42 bullet points on each one of them, and just loses the audience. And I began to see that there was a real need to show people who are out there communicating that, in fact, when all is said and done, what people really remember is the stories. The point is not to try and cover all this information, it's to uncover it. And of course, right here, it's all about the story.
Yes, it is. Wonderful. And just take us through now this latest book, The Astonishing Power of Story. What are you trying to tell us here in this book?
Story operates on a number of levels. Firstly, what really makes us special as human beings is our ability to share stories. And if you look at every great epoch in the development of humankind, it's always been our ability to tell and spread stories. From when we learned to speak around about 40,000 years ago, to writing 6,000 years ago, which was the beginning of civilization. And then even look in the past 40 years with the internet and email, we've seen an explosion of development. And that's largely because of our increasing ability to spread stories. And so one of the things that I've realized in successful organizations, they create forums where people can share success stories. So we don't just come and get an external speaker to do a data download, we actually get people to share what's been working. And when I see what worked for Joe, and not only do I recognize his excellence, but I also get an example that I can follow and that we can then replicate throughout the organization. Some of my clients are actually creating their own organizational Bibles where they actually collect these stories, and that becomes a blueprint of the way we do things around here.
And what kind of subjects do you touch on in the book?
Well, it really is pretty vast. I say change the world. Well, Ronald Reagan wasn't that motivated to do a whole lot about nuclear armaments until he saw a film, a fictional story called The Day After. And he said after he saw that film, a fictional story which just showed the tremendous horror of nuclear war in a way that fact didn't, he said, we have got to ensure that we do everything that we can to prevent a nuclear war. And thereafter led to the destruction of nearly 3,000 nuclear armaments. And he really gave credit to a story for that. There's so many incredible examples of how stories have inspired people because stories are emotional, they're memorable. And then, of course, if we look at why we buy one product over another, it's usually because of the story. Porsche Cayenne and a VW Touareg are the same car. They're built in the same factory, but the one is more than double the price. Because when you drive a Porsche, you're telling the world a story. I'm rich, young, and sexy.
Indeed. But do you have a particular audience that you are targeting with this new book, or is it a read that you can recommend for just anybody?
Yeah, I think it's broad enough for anybody who's interested to communicate more effectively, for anybody who's in sales and marketing. But I think there's also a psychological aspect, and that is that our success or failure depends on the story that we have about ourselves. So if your story about yourself is that life is bad, you know, why bother, you're never going to achieve anything of any value, that story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you pretty much land up not achieving a whole lot. Whereas we see with people with an optimistic story, who are upbeat and positive, you find that they tend to actually fulfill that prophecy of themselves. So our story about who we are is enormously powerful, and I think that part of the book is really relevant to anybody who wants to transform their lives.
Incredible. And when you are talking about motivation, for instance, because that's a subject that's of particular interest, I think, to many people. When you motivate people, do you tell them what they want to hear, or do you put the facts on the table and say, hey, you've got to change the way you are looking at things, and just how do you do it?
You know, I think ultimately people, you know, the old joke, if you want something done, there's three ways. You can do it yourself, pay one, or forbid your teenagers. There's a teenager in every one of us. People don't like to be told what to do. And by the way, this, Aubrey, is the power of story, because stories don't tell you what to do. They let you walk in the shoes of somebody else, and if that person that you walk in the shoes of achieves a successful result, you are then inspired to do it yourself. I always say, you know, do you want to go to the shops and be sold? Probably not. But do you want to buy things? Sure. And stories inspire us to make that decision, to take that choice on our own. So ultimately, when it comes to motivation, all I can do is provide people with tools to motivate themselves.
Wow, incredible, very interesting. And we know that you are having a book giveaway. Is this part of the book that will be given away?
Absolutely. We've got a few copies, and if anybody would like those copies, absolutely. They can email in, and we'll take the first 3 and get them a copy of the book.
And is there a website where they can get that information?
Absolutely. www.biglittlestories.com. Biglittlestories.com. We've also got a bunch of inspirational stories on that site, which I'm sure that your viewers will be keen to have a look at. And if they email us, they will be sure to get the first 3 people a copy of the book.
Oh, well, I'm sure they certainly will. And if you want more on that, go then to www.biglittlestories.com.